Hi BookTube, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and this is my second time filming this because apparently the other video was way too long. So I'm doing my July wrap, my August TBR. I was about to say July wrap, but I already did that. So my August TBR, and I'm also going to share with some of the books that I'm probably not going to finish in August, but I'm still reading them on and off. So first... So I debated about starting this one, but it's one of his not so long books. But I've been buying regular paperback copies of books where I have a mass market or hardback, and putting the hardbacks and the mass markets in the donation pile because I just don't like reading those. So this one is the Firestarter, and as you can see, I have a mass market copy of it, so I might trade it in one day. All I really know about this one is it's about a girl that's a pyrokinetic, and it's just her and her dad. Her mom died years ago, and I'm guessing it's going to be one of these things where her ability is going to start trouble and get people's attention. They're going to be like afraid of her or something. Yeah, nothing really says much in the back of the book, but like I said, I might, if I get a chance to go to BAM again anytime soon, I might go ahead and get another copy of this one, but it's not as long, so I figure I'll go ahead and start it now, and I've been meaning to read it this summer, so, because heat, summer. Next is one that I started back in July, and I've been meaning to pick it up again, and that's Anne Radcliffe's The Mysteries of Udolpho. As you can see, I've already started it. It's a gothic mystery, and it's about this young woman her father has passed away, and she is forced to live with her aunt, and her aunt and her do not get along. They don't understand each other, and her aunt kind of treats her like crap, and even gives her a hard time for still grieving, even though her father just died. And so her aunt decides to remarry this rich, handsome count, and she is forced to leave, to leave and live in Italy with this count, and is forced to leave, the closest she's been to home, and, the guy that she's starting to fall for, because her aunt doesn't approve of him. And so far, I've gotten as far as she's arrived. She's said goodbye to this guy, and it, breaks her heart a little bit because he's her only connection to her father. And she is, so far though, she's not entirely, her situation hasn't gotten bad yet, except for having to leave this guy that she's starting to fall in love with. But there's this ominous tone in the story, I feel like, because it's gonna get bad because you going by the description of the plot, it's gonna get bad at some point. And she's gonna start losing it and go a little bit crazy. So I haven't got to that point yet. So I'm excited to read that and to get back into that. And next is one I've already talked about on my Intimidating Books video, and that is Moby Dick. I have, so, like I said, I've started it, and doesn't look that hard, and maybe Matilda could read this book. Like, every time I think about this book, I always think about, I've said this in my last video, I always think about the scene in Matilda, when when she's reading the book while the rest of her family's watching TV, and her dad gets mad about it, and is so offended because she's not watching TV, which most parents would be pretty pleased if their kid chose to read a book instead of staring at the TV. And just like I said last time, I have feelings of where I find that scene funny, but also the scene makes me angry, just how her father reacts to her reading a book over watching TV, and then basically destroys the book, which is public property. He has no respect for books, for literature. But yeah, we haven't even got to the adventure part. We've met Ishmael, and he's gone to this little town, staying at this inn, and he's forced to room with this guy that he doesn't understand him and is not comfortable with rooming with him. And I think he's like a Native American or something. I'm not sure. And, you know, the last chapter I read is he goes to church and, like, he compared, and the minister or whatever was a captain, a ship captain, and a harpooner at one point. And there's, like, as Jennifer Brooks said in her video, her vlog, there's all these comparisons to ships in the ocean, and him being a captain once, a sea captain. And the sermon he's delivering is actually the whole Jonah and the whale. And Jonah is a biblical figure who got swallowed by a whale for his sins, and then the whale ends up, because he asked for forgiveness, the whale spits him back out. Which, that's one of those stories where I can see where some people who do not believe in God and are atheists would be like, that sounds like a fairy tale. Because, I mean, it's like basically a whale swallows the guy whole. And scientifically minded people too. Logical thinkers, I could see where they'd be like, there's no way. The guy would not survive. He'd be chewed up, and, you know, but there's a point to the story. But yeah, Jonah gets swallowed by the whale and he gets spit back out because because he asked God for forgiveness and wants repentance for his sins. So the preacher is talking about that story. So yeah, I've only gotten that far. I haven't gotten. I'm on chapter 10 now. And I'm just going by the title of this chapter, I'm guessing he and the guy, his roomie, become friends. Because it's called bosom friend. In a lot of, older books, they use that term to, like, you're really close. This, someone you're really close to. A friend that you're really close to. Like, But, like, I think the one time I've heard that bosom friend is in the Anne of Green Gables. Not the books, because I haven't read the books, but the original miniseries. Okay, so next is one that I've already started. So I have been meaning to start this book for a while. I love this author. She's one of my favorites, and so far there hasn't been a book by her that I didn't like. Because, like, there's sometimes, like, Stephen King, I'm not interested in all his books, like the Mr. Mercedes series. I'm not interested in those. But I had to read it. It's been out for, like, a couple years now, and I finally decided to pick it up. And that's The Clockmaker's Daughter. And like all her books, it goes back and forth between the present day that she sets the story in the 2017, and then we go into the past. And I think our main character is an archivist, and she discovers the picture of this house that her mother once described to her in a story. It's like, she tells the story like a fairy tale. And she says it was, part of her family history, her mom's family history. And she recognizes it, and she goes to tell her dad about it, and he thinks because it's the end of, she's going to be getting married soon, and her mom passed away years and years ago, so he's, on his mind, he's thinking, oh, of course you're thinking about your mother, you're getting married, so, that's the only reason, like, he's like, that's why you think this looks like the house in the story, and you're thinking about it because, you're grieving the loss of your mother and everything, and which I hate it when you have that, because of course we wouldn't have the story if it didn't turn out that they weren't just grieving, or that they really are, that they really are seeing this and something really is going to happen. But yeah, I just love Kate Warren's writing style, and I love her stories. So I finally started reading it. Okay, and then we have my nonfiction. So this is a book that is one of Olive from Book Olive's favorite books, I believe, and she's a big fan of, she loves birds, so she reads a lot of literature or nonfiction about birds. And this is a memoir about a woman who is grieving the loss of her dad who just passed, and she is raising this hawk that kind of, she sees herself in the hawk, with the hawk's personality is like hers. So she takes the hawk and is raising it. And I really have enjoyed memoirs out of nonfiction. I think nonfiction is a little tricky because you have to be really into the topic. I mean, I don't think anyone has ever just read nonfiction just to read nonfiction. I think people usually, if they're going to read nonfiction, if they're going to pick books on topics that they love and they're interested in. Even Olive, who's, a hardcore nonfiction fan, I think she's not going to read just any nonfiction. She's not going to just read nonfiction. But you can say that with fiction, too. Like, you're not going to just pick books that are, although my tastes have gone all over the place lately. Even my friend Larissa, who I'm not around I don't hang out all the time with anymore because we live in different states, and she was saying how she feels like my reading is like all over the place right now. But yeah, and it's not that long, and I wanted to read it this summer, so finally I'm gonna think about reading it. I'm gonna look into it. And then last but not least is a book is actually kind of one of the longer books that probably fits more in the books I'm going to show you in a little bit that are books that I'm reading, but I'm probably not going to finish in August. And that is The Accursed by Joyce Carol Oates. And I just remembered, like, when I first filmed this, I couldn't remember the guy, the booktuber who was a fan of hers. And I should have looked up before I started filming, looking up his name. Like, all I know about him is, like, I can picture his face, and I know that he is an American YouTuber, but he lives in the UK with his partner, and he's a huge fan of Joyce Carol Oates. So, and I've been meaning I keep thinking about her. Like, I see her books all the time at the roast office. So finally, I saw this one. I was like, I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna look at another book by her. And this particular one has a lot of, first of all, it's blurbed by Stephen King. Feverishly entertaining. Oates' hypnotic prose has never been better displayed. You should read it. Although sometimes that kind of annoys me when people are like, you should read this book. Although that's more along the lines when they're directly telling me they assume that I'm going to love that book. Because it happens to have an element of an element that I like normally. But I'm weird about that. Like, once you tell me I should read something, then I'm like, nope, I'm not gonna read it just because you think I should read it. Now, if it's someone recommending on BookTube, they're not directly talking to me, so it's like I'm more prone to, but this has a supernatural element. It's particularly vampires and, ghosts. So, and there's a shapeshifter as well, so I figure, I guess the shapeshifter is Dracula. Because this shape-shifting, vaguely European prince, who might just be the devil. So, I'm pretty sure they're thinking he's Dracula. So I think it has a supernatural element. So why not start with a new author that includes something that I'm into, that is my kind of genre. So yeah, and it's so it's just the same way I think why a lot of people really like Jonathan Strain and Mr. Norwell. It was long and dense, but it has wizards or magicians. I don't know what they're called in the book. I don't remember. And I like that. I like when they take different genres that are normally, there's that element's not in there. Like when they don't have magic or anything, and like when they take historical fiction and it doesn't normally have magic or supernatural elements, and they add that in the mix. Like, Jennifer Brooks did a review on I don't remember what the book is called, but I can't remember if it was one of the revolutions, like American or French Revolution. Oh, I think it was the French Revolution. And they said, in the book, I think that Napoleon and Robespierre had magically were like wizards or something. Because, the events were so extraordinary that it's like, the author was like, maybe they used magic. Maybe they had magic. Even though magic, as far as we know, does not exist. At least not the kind of magic you see in fantasy. So I'm a big fan of that. So I'm also some of the books that I want to start reading that I'm probably not going to finish them, might not even start them. So I've already talked about this book. This is one I got from the Rose office recently. Jonathan Franzen's The Corrections. So I've heard some mixed opinions about this author. People just do not like this author. He's not a nice guy. He's kind of a dick. And he was very rude to Oprah and her book club when they were going to read her book. So, and I feel like it's going to be seen as very pretentious. But I guess sometimes I like pretentious works. Sometimes I actually find them good stories and something, I'm pretty sure that I'm not like that, but, I think a lot of times we're drawn to stories or people that are the opposite of us. And I'm pretty sure I'm not as arrogant as characters in pretentious novels are. In fact, I'm very insecure and very, someone who doesn't really see myself any better than anyone else. In fact, I get annoyed when people say, talk about when my friends and family talk about how proud they are that I read so much, and I'm just thinking, there are so many people that read a lot more than I do. But, so I'm apprehensive, but I want to try it, because I've been trying to take on different types of books, so I'm going to try it. I hope if you're not a fan of this author, you don't get mad at me. And don't judge me if you don't like this author, please don't judge me if I'm reading this. I want to try it. So that one, it's not as long as some of these other books, but the other bigger books, it's probably more along the lines of the length of this one. But it can still take me forever, especially if it's slow moving with the plot. Now here's some really slow moving. So I've been meaning to get back into this. I keep delaying it, and I'll read a little bit, but then I won't pick it up for a while. So I need to one day just read a whole bunch of this book. So I was recently watching a video by the booktuber who kind of got shined a light on this book for me, and that's Leaf by Leaf. She's a great channel, by the way, He talks about more what is considered more literary, I think. More, I don't know if he really reads I don't think he reads YA. He reads, which also I can, make sense, because I think once the older you get, not, like I said, I will still to this day defend people that read YA if they're in their 40s and they still love a YA novel. I will still defend this, because I'm one of those people who probably will still read YA on occasion. But, as someone who's kind of growing out of it, leaning less towards it, I can, it makes sense that he's someone that is not interested in YA. Because, and unfortunately sometimes YA can be annoying, some of the tropes and stuff. So he reads a lot of stuff like this. And he was also the one who kind of shined a light on Jonathan Franzen's books. But I mean, to get to this one. He probably can talk about this book better than I can and what it's about. But in case you haven't watched my videos where I've mentioned this book, it's basically about a guy who has made a name for himself as an art forger. And it's gotten to the point where he cannot even bring himself to create his own original work, because he believes his original work is not good enough, and that his forgeries are better. And it just really looks at that whole idea of how everything's now mass-produced, and nothing's real and original anymore. And, it's an interesting philosophy to discuss. And I think a lot of people, every time I've talked about this book, I always think about how people feel about the Disney company right now. And how they're making a lot of live action remakes, and or at least they're making basically adapting from other works, a lot of comic books are doing really well for the Disney company, because since they bought Marvel. And a lot of people just really do not like the Disney company anymore. and think they're just all about the business now, and they don't really care about the products that they're making anymore. So it's very interesting. And I feel like, you know, I kind of see a connection there. So yeah, I need to pick up this and read a good chunk of this book soon. So maybe, because I'm sure we'll be going away for Christmas, unless, you know, we have family come here. We'll probably be going out to visit my grandma around Christmas time again, since my sister, this year we get my sister and her little family unit for Thanksgiving, and then they go to her in-laws for Christmas. So we will probably go to South Carolina for Christmas this year. So maybe I'll bring it then. But like I said, I might read a little bit of it. So here's another Stephen King. So I've been meaning, this was one of these situations where I decided to buy a new copy of this because I've come to realize I don't like mass market copies. And my copy of it, I think it's still mass market. I don't know if it's maybe B paperback, where it's somewhere between, trade and mass market. I'm not sure though. I just assume because it has a different shape. It's like very tall and more elongated than my very first copy of it. So finally, and my mom agreed with me that if you're gonna, buy a regular size paperback, because she agrees actually that mass markets are not that fun to read. And I also don't like hardbacks. I mean, if it's a smaller book, then I will get it in hardback. But if it's a bigger book like this, then I rather have a paperback, a regular size paperback. So I've already read this before. It took me like years to read it, so I'm reading it again. Although Goodreads says I've read it twice, which is not the case. I've only read it once. And I want to make a video where I compare the book to the two adaptations that were made. I've been meaning to make that video. And so far as I'm reading it, it's only a bunch of like little things that are different. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna, I think the changes are gonna get a little bit bigger. And obviously there's that one infamous scene that will never be seen on screen. If you read the books, probably will know when I'm talking about the infamous scene that will never put on screen. But yeah, so I'm gonna read a little bit more of this. I like this cover. The white with the teethy smile with the clown nose, and the writing, the title looks like it's written in blood. It almost looks like a little bit like paint. I don't know what these editions are called, because I think there's other books in these editions. Other versions of this book published in these editions. And then there's also another edition of Stephen King books I really like. My reading is on has come back. She was gone for a little while, and she had these editions, the Hodder editions that are really colorful, and they make a rainbow on your shelf with their spines. I really like those because I'm big on colorful covers. So. Yeah, and then the last one is another situation where I bought a different copy of it and decided to change it up. And this was one of the ones where I had a hardback copy. But again, because of its size, I was like, I don't know if I want to, I think I want to get a paperback one of it. So I finally did it. And that is Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Now, I've not read her other series. I had a copy of the first book from that series. But I've since put in the donation pile. I might have already given it to the roast office. But I could always buy it again if I wanted to, if I really wanted to read some further work. But, from what I remember, it's basically these two nations, and one nation reveres dragons and one nation fears dragons, but they both fear this one particular dragon that could destroy them both. And the queen of one of the nations, her producing an heir is what the people believe will protect them from this other dragon being reborn. And she doesn't want to do that. She wants to have her own life. and be with who she wants to be with. And she actually, I think the queer romance is with her and this girl, this young woman who from the other nation who has come undercover as one of her servants, and now she's her, one of her handmaids. Now she's a right hand woman, and I think they end up falling in love. But of course she needs to marry a guy, and then we have this alchemist who has been exiled. He's in the perspective, and then we also have the perspective of a young woman who is being trained as a dragon rider, soldier type person. But there's an incident where she rescues someone and brings them, and that person, they're either a criminal or something, but basically, if she helps this person and reveals that she has, then she will lose her chance to become a dragon rider. And there's a few other significant characters I do not remember. But yeah, I thought this would be perfect to read during the summer, especially because I think it takes place on islands. So I've been meaning to read it, and I thought I would read it, and I thought it would fit with reading a Moby Dick, because again, they both have to do with the sea, and I was kind of going through for a sea theme, an ocean theme this summer, so I've read a couple of those. And like I said this before, that I was going to do, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but I ended up reading that in April instead of over the summer, so I thought I would at least start this book. I love this cover too. So that is my reading for August, my potential reading. So I hope this one goes through this time. If not, then it doesn't matter what I'm saying. I'll have to refilm it anyway for the third time. But hopefully that won't be the case. So if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell notification if you want to be notified when I post new videos. And I hope you are being safe and you're still enjoying your reading. Alright, bye!